My family made me give up my dream school for my brother's ego. So I vanished, built a better life, and when they finally called, it was not love. It was desperation. My father insisted I be present at my brother's wedding, the one he always favored, going so far as to say he would pull my tuition if I refused. They were completely blindsided when I let it slip that I was already earning more than my golden boy brother. For as long as I can remember, I have been the invisible one in the family. My dad was, and still is, completely obsessed with my brother. At one point, he said something that still rings in my ears. He told me he did not care that I had been accepted into one of the top colleges in the country. What mattered to him was keeping my brother's ego intact. So, he demanded I attend a local college instead, just to avoid making Caleb feel insecure. Rather than start a war, I played along. I told him I would attend the local college on one condition, that I could live in the dorms. It was all a setup. I told that lie just so I could slip away unnoticed. In reality, I enrolled in the prestigious university and stayed on campus, all thanks to a scholarship my father never knew about. Eventually, the truth is going to come out, and when it does, he will explode. But really, think about this. How would you feel if the same people who had barely acknowledged your existence for years suddenly expected you to show up and pretend like everything was fine for a single day? That is exactly the kind of twisted scenario I was facing. But honestly, that is just how things always go in my family. Let me back up and give you the full picture. My name is Elias. And if it is not obvious already, my family is a mess. I mean that in the truest sense. Sometimes I wonder if it even qualifies as a family. What do you call the people who brought you into the world, only to turn their backs on you the moment someone shinier came along? Is that really what family is supposed to be? To put it simply, things could have been different. I might have grown up in a loving home, if only my parents had treated me and my brother with the same level of care. But no, they played favorites from the start. And as far back as I can remember, I have been little more than a background character in my own household, overshadowed by Caleb, who happened to be the healthier, cuter baby. It sounds ridiculous, right? But apparently, those early impressions meant everything to my parents, Martin and Diana. Within a few short weeks of Caleb being born, it was like the whole house had shifted around him. Everyone doted on him. He was not some extraordinary genius or anything. He just looked the part. He was charming in a way that made people gravitate toward him. Meanwhile, I faded into the background, barely noticed. My childhood? It was rough. I was not mistreated physically, but I was emotionally sidelined. They gave me what I needed to survive, but that was about it. And Caleb, well, he turned into an arrogant little prince who thought the world revolved around him. Thanks to our parents, he actually believed it. I was always the quiet one, more introverted and reserved. Caleb? He was loud, controlling, and cruel. And yes, imagine this. I was actually bullied by my younger brother. He made it his mission to ruin things for me, whether by throwing fits that got my plans canceled or snatching away the stuff I cared about just to see me squirm. The whole situation was bad enough on its own, but mix in a pair of parents who clearly picked a favorite, and it became unbearable. My folks created a monster by spoiling him so much. While he got showered with praise and new gadgets, I got the bare minimum. My birthdays were checked off like chores. My achievements? Ignored. My role in the family felt like nothing more than filler. One moment that really stuck with me happened in third grade. I had managed to score straight A's on my report card. I was excited. I thought maybe, just maybe, someone would notice. When I handed it to my mom, she glanced at it and muttered something like, "That's good," before immediately going off about a painting Caleb made. A crooked little dog drawing that, of course, earned a spot on the fridge. My report card? Tossed in the drawer like junk mail. So yeah, that was life for me. I was the forgettable paper shoved into a kitchen drawer, while Caleb's every scribble was treated like a masterpiece. And it went beyond schoolwork. Caleb had the final say in everything. Where we went on vacation, what we had for dinner, what we watched on the weekends, it all depended on him. Every time I had a preference, it was shot down. And Caleb would rub it in, like he was the king and I was just some unpaid servant tagging along. Now you probably understand why I was desperate to get out of there. College was my ticket. And not just any college, a truly elite university had offered me a scholarship. It was the kind of place that could change your whole future. Getting into that school was one thing, but having my tuition covered? That was a miracle. But of course, there was a problem. It was out of state. And you can probably guess how that went over with my family. Why did they object? You already know. It all came back to Caleb. My parents told me that attending college out of state might hurt Caleb's feelings. They said it would be better if I stayed close to home. According to them, the local school had better opportunities. What a joke. What they really meant was that Caleb might feel small if I did something big. The way I saw it, if Caleb wanted more in life, he could have worked for it like I did. But none of that mattered to them. They told me flat out, I had to stay local. And that, right there, tells you everything you need to know about how insane my situation really was. Somewhere deep down, I started to suspect that all of this, the push to keep me close, the sudden concern, was not really about love or support. It felt like they were doing everything they could to make sure I never outshined Caleb. Almost like they saw the potential in me, but deliberately chose to ignore it, afraid that I might disrupt the perfect image they had built around him. Why else would they bend over backwards to convince me to stay at some nearby college, while Caleb, who never showed much drive, was handed opportunity after opportunity without question? It was like they had already written a story, and my success just did not fit into their version of it. But did I fall in line? Absolutely not. I had already jumped through enough hoops, swallowed enough pride, and made enough compromises just to survive in that warped family dynamic. So I drew a line. I told them the only way I would agree to attend the local college was if I could live in the dorms on campus. To my surprise, they agreed, maybe too quickly. They probably thought they had won, that they had convinced me to stay close and keep playing my role. But the truth was, they had no idea. I had already packed my bags and headed out of state, enrolling in that prestigious university with the scholarship I had worked so hard to earn. The best part? That college offered the exact finance program I had been looking for, and the course took only 2 years to complete. Compared to the 4 years required at the local school, it was perfect. I could graduate earlier and finally step into the life I had always dreamed of. Honestly, choosing that path was one of the smartest things I have ever done. Not only did I escape the toxic environment my parents had created, but I also stepped into a world of real opportunity. That college opened doors I never imagined. Right after graduation, I landed a job with a 6-figure salary. I have now been with the company for a full year, and I am on the verge of getting promoted. Things are finally falling into place. And I made it happen. The scholarship took care of most of the tuition, about 70% of it, and I used the money my father sent for local college expenses to cover the rest. He still sends that money, fully convinced I am enrolled in the nearby school. I never corrected him. I know it is a little deceptive, but I see it as a small payback for 3 years of neglect and dismissal. Communication with my family has been limited, to say the least. There have been a few calls now and then, mostly surface-level check-ins, and I made 1 or 2 short visits during the holidays just to keep up appearances. Outside of that, they have not really bothered me. I have been able to keep them at arm's length by saying I was busy with school, and, truthfully, they never seemed all that interested anyway. After all, they still had Caleb to dote on. In a way, it worked out for them too. With me out of sight, they only had to focus on their golden boy, and I will admit, there was a strange sense of peace that came with that distance. It did hurt a little to know that my absence went unnoticed, that they never even realized I had moved out of state. But that pain was balanced by the freedom of not having their judgment and bias weighing me down every day. Even so, I would be lying if I said I never missed having a real family. Not the version I was born into, but the feeling of being surrounded by people who truly cared. I have good friends now. I enjoy my job. Life is better. But somewhere inside, there is still that emptiness, that small part of me that wonders what it would feel like to be truly accepted by the people who raised me. And then came this morning. My dad called and said Caleb was getting married. He asked me to come home a few days early to help prepare for the wedding. That call hit me harder than I expected. After everything, my father was reaching out. I had dreamed of this moment for years. The day he might finally recognize me as part of the family, include me in something that mattered. For the first time in a long while, I felt something emotional stir inside me. My parents had never treated me like I belonged. Their world revolved around themselves and Caleb. And now, suddenly, I was being asked to be there, to participate, to show up like I mattered. That small sign of inclusion, it felt powerful. But almost immediately, reality crept back in. These were the same parents who had overlooked me at every turn. Even now, they did not know that I lived hundreds of miles away. They had no idea who I had become or what I had accomplished. So what was I really walking back into? A warm family reunion, or just another opportunity to feel invisible? And that is the crossroad I am standing at. I still long for a sense of family, for connection, for even a single moment of belonging. But at the same time, the thought of stepping back into that environment and having my heart broken all over again, it terrifies me. Should I go to my brother's wedding and try to reconnect, just for the sake of family? Or should I honor the life I have built for myself and stay away from the people who hurt me the most? It has been 2 days since the call, and I have had time to think it over. But I am still torn. In the end, I chose to hold on to my peace of mind. And while some people might disagree with the choice I made, I ultimately decided not to accept my father's invitation to attend Caleb's wedding. Looking back on it now, it honestly feels like one of the most freeing decisions I have ever made. After sitting with my thoughts for a while, I sent my father a short text. Nothing dramatic. I simply told him that I would not be coming. No long-winded explanation. No apologies. Just the truth. I had no intention of showing up. I expected some sort of response, but I did not expect the emotional manipulation to kick in so quickly. Within the hour, my phone was lighting up with a stream of messages. My mother was the first to start pushing. She went straight for the guilt, asking me if I really wanted to miss Caleb's special day. She questioned whether I wanted to be that kind of brother, the one who does not show up. She mentioned how hurt Caleb would be if I did not attend. She even tried to paint a picture of how much it would mean to Caleb if his older brother were there to support him. Really? That same brother who never once cared about any of my milestones or important days. And of course, she tried to drop the classic, "You only get one family" line. But here is the thing, family only means something when they act like one. Otherwise, it is just a word. So I replied and told her the same thing I had told my father. I was not going. That was final. When her guilt trips failed, my dad tried a different approach. He started off acting calm, trying to appeal to some sense of family unity, saying stuff like, "This is the kind of moment family should come together for." But when I still would not budge, his tone changed fast. He went from passive to threatening in no time. He got on the phone and said that if I did not show up at Caleb's wedding, they were going to cut off my college tuition. He claimed they could not risk people gossiping about why one of their sons was missing from such a big occasion. It was clear they did not care about me or Caleb. They only cared about keeping up the appearance of a perfect family for the sake of their friends and neighbors. It was all about image, never about love, never about the truth. And that is when I hit my limit. I was floored by how self-centered they were. Imagine threatening your own child's education just to force him to attend a wedding, just to avoid public embarrassment. It was pathetic. Even more so because, by that point, their money meant absolutely nothing to me. So I told my father exactly that. I told him he could stop sending money. I was not going to that wedding, and there was nothing he could say that would change my mind. What he did not know was that I had already graduated, that I had moved to another state, that I was earning a six-figure income and building a life they could never have imagined for me. I had not told them any of it, not yet, because I knew the second they got wind of my success, they would try to twist it or take credit for it or just find some way to poison it. And right now, I was actually enjoying life for the first time. I did not want that ruined. My refusal to attend the wedding, despite my father's threats, pushed him over the edge. He started ranting about how ungrateful I was, about how I had always been a problem child. And then came the big punishment. He said he was going to have me pulled from the local college registry to teach me a lesson. The man was acting like he had just dropped a bomb, like I would fall to my knees and beg not to be removed from a college I had never even stepped foot in. He had no clue that pulling my name from that school would have absolutely zero effect on me. In fact, it was laughable. I nearly broke into a fit of laughter right there. I could have told him the truth, that I never attended the local college at all, but honestly, letting him go through with it sounded way more entertaining. So now, I'm just sitting back, waiting for the moment he marches in to withdraw a student who was never enrolled to begin with. The real fun will start when he realizes I no longer depend on him for anything. That day is coming. I am sure of it. And I am bracing myself for the inevitable barrage of angry phone calls when the truth finally hits him. Anyway, that is where things stand right now. As I had guessed, my dad did not take my silence well. This morning, I got a call from him, and let me tell you, he was livid. Completely unhinged. The second I answered, he started demanding answers. He wanted to know where I had been all this time, what I had been doing with all the money he had sent me for college. It honestly felt like I was listening to a kid throwing a fit after being told they could not have their favorite toy. The man was having a meltdown, and all because his carefully crafted fantasy of control was slipping through his fingers. This time around, it was not me losing my mind over the chaos, it was my father who was completely thrown off balance. After our last conversation, he apparently marched down to the local college. Yes, really. That is where things started to get interesting. He went there with one goal in mind, to remove me from enrollment, just to teach me a lesson. That was his big move. He honestly believed that suspending my studies would force me to fall in line and show up at Caleb's wedding. But things did not go as planned. When he got to the college and asked to withdraw my name from the system, the staff couldn't find any record of me. Because, of course, I had never been enrolled there in the first place. I can only imagine what that moment looked like, the disbelief on his face when he realized the entire setup he had been relying on never existed. During our next phone call, his tone made it obvious that he had been humiliated. He was fuming. He demanded to know where I had been all this time and what I had done with the money he had been sending for tuition. The whole thing was so ridiculous that I couldn't help but laugh. His outrage was completely misplaced. After enduring a fresh round of shouting, I finally decided it was time to tell him everything. I told him the truth, that I had graduated on a scholarship over a year ago, and that the money he had sent had helped me in small ways, but I had never needed him the way he thought I did. Then I dropped the real bomb. I told him I now had a six-figure income, and that I was making more than he ever had. At first, he thought I was joking, but it did not take long for him to realize I was serious. I could hear it in his voice, the disappointment, the frustration, the bruised pride. It must have been tough for him to accept that I had built a better life without any of their help. I was ready for whatever was going to come next. And sure enough, he erupted. He accused me of betraying the family, of lying to the people who raised me. He started ranting about how much he had supposedly done for me, how much he had sacrificed. But let's be real. Was he referring to all the times he and my mother treated me like I didn't exist? To the years they ignored me while showering Caleb with attention? That was his definition of parenting? Then, as if the situation wasn't already insane, he tried to offer a deal. He said the only way he could forgive me was if I showed up to Caleb's wedding and played along, made sure no one gossiped, no one whispered about why I was not there. That was his condition. Not love. Not understanding. Just keeping up appearances. It was absurd. Why he suddenly cared about how the family looked in public, I will never understand. He had never cared about that before. Maybe the reality of their picture-perfect image unraveling scared him. But I was done playing along. I told him I did not need his forgiveness. I was not going to fake anything just to make others think we were one big happy family. He kept trying to convince me, getting more desperate with each sentence, but I did not budge. I told him point blank, I would never attend the wedding of the person who ruined my childhood. I made it clear that I was walking away from all the drama, all the pain, and all the lies. He was stunned, but I was not finished. For years, I had stayed silent. I had swallowed my emotions, played the quiet, obedient role. Not anymore. I told them not to contact me again, that they could enjoy Caleb's big day without me, while I continued living the life I had created on my own terms. He tried one last emotional push, told me I was still his child, told me I should be there for my brother. But I was done. I told him that as far as I was concerned, he had one son, and he had made it very clear which one mattered. Before he could get another word in, I ended the call. Blocked his number. Just like that, I had cut the last tie holding me to that toxic part of my life. It was bittersweet. I never thought it would come to this. A clean break. No going back. But I knew deep down it was the right move. Finally, I could live in peace. No more manipulation. No more pretending. And maybe, just maybe, one day I will build a family of my own, one that knows what love and respect are supposed to feel like. More than a month has passed since I went completely no contact. I truly believed the chaos was behind me. I thought I was finally free from all of it. But my family, it seems, does not give up that easily. A few days ago, I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. It was my mother, and she was sobbing uncontrollably. It shocked me, honestly. I had blocked every number connected to them, so I was not expecting to hear her voice. I almost hung up right away, but something in her voice stopped me. I had a feeling something might be seriously wrong. Turns out, it was nothing like that. She told me how much she missed me, how all she wanted was her son back. She said she did not care about what I had done or what Dad had said. None of it mattered to her anymore. She just wanted me back in the family. But it confused me. Where was all this emotion before? When I told them I was walking away, they did not seem to care. And now, suddenly, she wants to reconnect? It felt off. Something about it was not sitting right. So I told her I would call her later, and I hung up. I needed to be sure I was not being played again. Out of curiosity, I called my aunt, my mom's sister. She usually had the inside scoop on family matters, and I needed to hear from someone outside the immediate circle. What she told me, it confirmed everything I had suspected. Apparently, Caleb's wedding was a complete fiasco, a massive shitstorm. His seemingly beautiful bride turned out to be a full-fledged fraudster. Before the wedding, she persuaded Caleb, my parents, and a group of family members to put all of their savings into a dodgy, once-in-a-lifetime investment opportunity. And guess what? It was all a hoax. She took the money and dipped. There were no weddings. She's gone, as are my family's savings. However, it wasn't the end of it. My aunt also informed me that my parents were in even more serious difficulty than I had suspected. Apparently, my father provoked a disturbance with an employee and his family, resulting in a significant loss for his already dying firm. And then everything clicked for me. This is why he was so eager to invite me to the wedding. He wanted to salvage his image by demonstrating how much he treasured his perfect family and all those values. But of course, that did not work. This fiasco between Caleb and his bride just added to the negative news. So basically, they are losing money left and right. To make matters worse, they used their house as collateral for a loan in an attempt to salvage the firm. However, this also backfired on them, and now they are likely to lose their home. They had to move into a dilapidated trailer or studio apartment because that's all they could afford. Now everything was plain to me. My mother didn't call because she missed me or wanted me back. They urgently needed me. They realized I was doing well for myself and wanted to use me as a safety net. I understood everything. They were out of options, and I was their only hope. So, I wasn't playing that game. I was not going to be dragged back into their mess, especially now that I had seen the whole picture. They didn't care about me because they were too busy catering to Caleb and his needs. But here's the catch. My parents are now fighting with Caleb because they blame him for everything. For the entire wedding fiasco. For all the money they've lost, it's actually pretty funny. The golden child they built their lives around has ruined everything. And to be honest, it made me happy that they were finally realizing their mistakes. Anyway, I could care less. I'm staying out of the controversy. After my mother called, I blocked her again. I wasn't going to let her control my emotions. But did this prevent my parents from reaching out? No, absolutely not. They were needy and clingy, refusing to accept that things weren't going their way. My parents eventually showed up at my house. I'm not sure how they got the address, but I believe they badgered some of my old friends for information. However, the how does not matter. What matters is that they showed up at my door, reminding me of family values, and that, as their older son, I was their responsibility. And now somehow, they were mine. I slammed the door in their faces, of course. They begged me to help them, claiming they were penniless and had spent their last money on a flight to meet me. That sucked for them, but I wasn't going to help. This is not the end of it. A few days later, Caleb arrived at my home, practically crying and pleading for help. He stated that he missed having his big brother in his life. I'm not sure what big brother he's referring to because all I remember is him bullying me. I warned him, but he kept begging, saying mom and dad were going to cut him off shortly because they were angry with him for putting them into this problem. It was all for nothing. Caleb shared the same fate as my parents. I locked the door in his face, warning him that if any of them returned, I'd call the cops. Since then, I haven't heard from any of them, and I honestly don't care. I am done with this toxic family. I'm a little sad that things with my family have come to this, because the void they created will always be present in my life. But I'm not going to take their trash anymore, just for the sake of family. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.